Captain Ryan Harrington. I think he's an Evan Root sponsor. He's a social media wonder. I'm always looking for his videos on the social media.
Alright, how's everyone doing tonight? Good. Who in here is fishing Johnny Keller tournament? How many people? Got a few. Might change some of your minds here before the end of the night. I'm not going to push it too much, but basically Inshore, for the Johnny Keller tournament, they put all the species that are around right now. We'll go over kind of those species. We're in a wintertime mode, and I think I did this same seminar this time of year like 3 or 4 years ago. And I was prepared to talk about winter strategies and cold weather and all that. Here we are, it's 80 degrees, so that's gonna eventually change. So I'm gonna give you guys some tips here for the next, say, 3 months. So what to do Saturday if you're fishing, and what to do coming up the next 2 or 3 months after that. All right, so I'll kind of go through some species lists too, Johnny Keller. That way, you guys that are fishing it, you'll get all my tips, and the guys that aren't, you'll still go catch those same species the next couple months. So the nice thing about both this time of year, sometimes I do seminars and I'll come up here with like 6 or 7 different rods and different setups, and you guys are writing notes. You're gonna have to go spend $500 at the tackle store tomorrow, but either to win this tournament or just fish right now, literally you can catch all the species in this whole tournament with one setup. A 7.5 foot rod, so basic setup for you guys. You guys probably have something similar to this in your arsenal. If not, this is not crazy expensive. It's not super technical. This is one rod you guys can go get and use year round, especially now, and again, catch all the species for that tournament. When it comes to length, I like this is 7.5 foot rod. That's my go-to. Any longer, you're going to end up with a 7.6. You're going to crank it in your tailgate or on a fan or something. So just start with a 7.6. The reason being, you can still get really long casts with it, and you're not losing any power or anything. So all my rods, regardless of brand or what I'm doing, if it's any type of casting rod, they're all 7.5 foot rods. This is a medium heavy, so I can flip live baits out there, lighter live baits. I can get good long distance casts on. I can also use artificials with the same rod. 4000 series reel. They might be called something different depending on the brands. It might be called a 40 or somehow the 3500. What you want to look for on your rod and reel setup, on your reels, is just look at the drag. Some are gonna, if you put 2 reels against each other and one has 26 pounds of drag, the other one has 20. I promise you're not using that much drag anyways. You got to think that you're not catching probably a fish that big inshore. Even if you are, if you caught a 50-pound cobia, you're only using 8 to 9 pounds of drag. Your line to leader connection, an easy one to learn is a uni to uni knot. That's what everyone pretty much uses. For you guys up north, a lot of people come down and fish in the wintertime, and I see a lot of people up north that use swivels. If you can, stay away from swivels. If there's any type of Spanish mackerel around or any toothy critters, your leader is 3 or 4 feet above your bait, but they see that as a little fry bait coming through the water. So sometimes you'll be fishing, whether it's live bait or artificials, you get yourself a bite, or sometimes you don't feel it. Your whole rig is going from your main line. That swivel to a Spanish mackerel looks like a fry bait. That's a bait to them. They have toothy, real toothy teeth, so they're going to come through and cut that. So learn a knot. The uni to uni is super easy, and I'll pass this around. I've actually switched from a uni to uni to an FG knot. It was super trendy and cool online. It's from Australia. There's all this cool stuff to it. It's a little bit of a learning curve to learn it, and I'll show you guys after the seminar. Anyone that wants to learn it to come up here. If I do it now, you won't be able to see it. Pretty easy line to leader knot, and when I pass this around, you'll see you can rub your finger up and down it, and there's no resistance to it. I like starting with long leaders, and when there's no resistance, you can actually reel that leader, the knot, all the way through your guides. So spend a few minutes and learn the FG knot if you can. And again, I'll teach it to you guys. Whoever wants to know it, come up after, I'll teach it. Hardest part to it is keeping tension on your main line. So my boat has a tower on it. I've kind of come used to putting it in a certain rod holder, like wrapping it around my tower and then back to my mouth. That makes it super easy. If you don't have a tower, if you're fishing off a pier or a dock, I'll show you another way to wrap it around one of the guides of the line, and you lean your rod against yourself. So when I start out, whether I'm fishing Johnny Keller, if I'm just going out before a charter or fun fishing, no rhyme or reason to it. I just take the spool leader, and I do about 6 foot. I spread my arms out, so give or take a 6 foot leader to start. It's a lot longer than some people use, but my deal is if I can start with 6 foot, then I can change leader, or I can change lures or hooks throughout the day. If I get some toothy critters, if it's shaped up, I can cut off 4 or 5 inches at a time, and I'll use it until it gets about 2 feet. I'll go down to about a 2 foot leader before I change that. The other thing too, there's some controversy now going back to monofilament. So we've all been kind of brainwashed on fluorocarbon. That it's better. It's obviously 10 times the cost if you go to buy it. I have and do use fluorocarbon still. I've kind of been toying with using some monofilament, and I have not noticed a difference going back to mono when I'm fishing artificials. And C.A. Richardson is the one that kind of got me hooked on that. He said, hey, go back to mono. I don't see any more bites. If you're worried about pricing, you can get 10 times more of your monofilament leader. And reason being on artificials, those fish are hitting it either from the side or they're chasing it. They're chasing a bait that they're seeing in the water. So if that fluorocarbon is a little bit clear, I don't think that they have time to really see that. Lures. So for you guys fishing Johnny Keller, you can go with this same rod, reel, line setup and literally throw this one lure right here and catch basically all your species. Sheepshead, probably have to use shrimp or barnacles, but this is a mere little John. And sometimes in seminars I get asked, if you're fishing artificials, you can only have one artificial lure the rest of your life, what would it be? There's some guys, they swear on a gold spoon or top water, different things. If it's me, if I only have one artificial the rest of my life, it's literally just a mere little John. So this is just a stick of plastic, but it imitates a shrimp that's kind of kicking out of the grass. And there's no right or wrong reason or way to throw this as far as your action. I get clients in the boat new to fishing that have never fished, and we'll fish live bait. Sometimes this will outfish live bait, especially with trout. And I'll have them say, hey, look, I'll throw it and catch 5 fish in a row, and they have a white bait or a shrimp out there not catching anything. And I say, hey, just try this. Just flip it out there, and they don't have to be super great fishermen. They just kind of wiggle it and reel it back in. It's effective. It's more of a reaction light, especially this time of year. Dealing with cooler water, those fish don't really want to chase down a big live bait. But this that imitates a shrimp kind of coming through their zone, especially trout. I've noticed trout, I think they want to kill what's in their zone. They want it out of there. So they're not necessarily eating it to feed themselves, they're eating it to get it out of their way. So you flip it through the same zone a couple times, they're going to eat it. Question, can they be weedless? So that's a 3/8 ounce Mission Fishing jig head on there, and they do also sell the weedless ones. What I realized though, if you use a heavier jig head and if you're getting grass on there, if you just kind of rip it a little bit harder, the bigger trout will sit down in that grass, and you can rip it through to where you're thinking, that cast is done, let me bring it in. I've caught a lot of big fish doing that. So I'm born and raised here in Tierra Verde. I'm 100% saltwater. I don't know the first thing about freshwater fishing or bass fishing or anything, but I'm on the National Evan team, and 20 out of 22 of us are pro bass fishermen. When you talk to them about color of lure, they break out their little chart and they say the clarity and the barometer, use this flaky something. No, the color, like that right there, that rod reel and setup, you catch fish year round on it. It's root beer. I don't care if the water's tannic or clear or whatever, muddy, like that's what I'm throwing. So inshore versus offshore, a lot of the offshore guys, if I was strictly a grouper fishing guy, I could get up here and beat my chest that I'm the best grouper fisherman or mediocre or not that great. Usually when it comes to grouper fishing, it's how good your spots are, how good your coordinates are, what bottom you're fishing, what structure that is. Not to dummy it down because I do a lot of grouper fishing, I love it, but that's all about your exact coordinate. You're getting on that spot, you're dropping baits in their face. Inshore's a lot harder. So I could give you guys the coordinates and show you right here is where I caught 40-inch redfish. I caught 40-inch snook here. But it's not just going to that spot and dropping a shrimp in there. We're fishing tides, barometer, but mostly tides and time of year. These fish are always moving through here. So that's a big thing too when it comes to tides. So for those of you guys fishing Johnny Keller on Saturday, we're fishing, we're right in the middle of a moon phase. We're going towards a new moon, so not a whole lot of moving water on Saturday. It's an even playing field for everybody, so it's probably not going to be the one day of the month you want to go target on a slow tide. I think it's only moving 5 or 6 inches all day, which is going to be slow as far as some of my spots, but what I would do is fish different areas. The fish don't leave, they still feed. So we're coming up we're coming up to the new moon, starting Friday is when it's the slowest, and each day towards that new moon you'll see more and more snook build up here. Not just here, but any of your passes, any kind of moving water. So I would probably avoid any of these spots. Now if you fished here 3 days ago, you could have caught 30 snook. If you fish here for the tournament on Saturday, you go, hey, I know this good snook spot. And that's why I don't mind giving you guys my spots, because hey, you could have caught 30 snook there 3 or 4 days ago. You fish a Saturday, probably not. And it's not that they won't feed, they're just not here. They're not in a feeding pattern. So look for any kind of drop-offs. I'll kind of go species by species. So snook right now, that's going to be your toughest one to catch, just time of year. Basically that's a spring and a fall fish. So they're going to be your hardest ones to target. But use some strategy too, and also if you guys are just fun fishing any time of year, this time of year it might be a slow bite after a cold front, something like that, so don't put all your eggs in one basket. Look for docks right now. Docks are super productive, whether you're fishing from land or you're fishing on a boat. Most of my inshore charters last month I've been dock fishing. Now what do I look for? I look for docks. I used to do real estate, so I kind of have an edge on what areas are more expensive versus less expensive. You might say, well, how does that correlate to fishing? That makes no sense. Well, nowadays, the new trend is wrapping your pilings with a little plastic. And usually the more expensive neighborhoods, they get hooked and sinkered into putting that on their pilings. I've seen fish leave productive docks because of that. Those fish are in docks for a reason. Yeah. Those fish are there because there's structure and because there's barnacles. The barnacles is the life cycle of everything. There's docks I used to fish for 20 years that always held redfish. And I'll go back there now and I see the guy wraps his pilings, and sure enough, the fish will leave. Now, if you're fishing from land on a dock, this is probably the most common mistake that I see people make, is they either live on the water or they found a dock or a friend's dock. And I'll see people get their rod and reel their bait, they walk to the end of the dock and they cast as far as they can.
A wine glass or anything like that.
That's great if you want to catch catfish. There's all the catfish you want in the middle of channels, deep water. If you want catfish, fish a 12-foot area with sand on the bottom and throw a squid out there, you're going to catch a catfish. But if you want to catch a game fish, the game fish are under the dock. So whether it's your house or your buddy's house or you found a public spot you can go to, don't step foot on the dock. So if you're fishing, if there's say a 60-foot seawall and a dock, walk to the side of the seawall, and the dock is your target, and skip your baits under the dock. Don't ever go on the dock. That's where the fish are. But if any of you guys have done this, or if you just think in your head what would happen if, let's say the sun's straight above you, it's a bright sunny day, and you put a dive mask on, and you get in the water, if you're 5 foot outside that dock, and you look into the shadow, all you see is a black wall where the shadow is. Now, if you were to swim underwater under the dock, in the shadow, and look around, you have 360-degree vision. So those game fish, they're in that shadow, and they can see all the bait coming in. They can see around it. The other thing too, if you look outside the dock, look at the surroundings. For instance, like the south side of Pinellas Point down there, think about those docks. They're facing a wide open bay, and there's a flat that's out there. That flat is very productive with snook trout and redfish. On a low tide, on a falling water, those fish come off the flat and go right, they only have to swim 10 feet, and they're right there at all these docks. You can use this bait. The other thing too right now, that's nice for the next 3 months, is you guys can use shrimp. I don't use shrimp in the summertime at all. You'll go through 20 dozen shrimp, and you're getting your bites, you're all excited, but you're feeding all the pinfish out there, unless you use a really tiny hook. It's almost not worth using shrimp in the summertime. I hate to say that, but there's very few big fish to be caught on shrimp in the summertime. The colder and nastier it gets, the more shrimp come into play though. There's still plenty of whitebait to be found. Don't stress out the next 2 months though and kill yourself trying to get whitebait. I've been out there lately after a few of these fronts, and I've been on schools of snooker redfish throwing perfect money-sized whitebait in their face. They won't eat it, and I'll throw a little john like this or a shrimp at it, and that's what they want to feed on. The cold fronts fish are just like us. So if it's super hot or super cold, we get a little bit lethargic. You're not thinking about eating a huge meal and running around having fun and chasing stuff. You kind of want to hunker down in your house. So the colder it is, the smaller the bait you want to use. Thursday afternoon, maybe Friday morning is going to be good because that next cold snap's coming through. And those fish, they can feel that barometer change and they feed. They'll eat it on everything. They want to feed. They just don't know what's going to come up after the front or how long it is. So they just sit there and eat all day. Those are those days we talk about where you caught 70 redfish in one spot. That's typically the day right as that front's coming up and approaching. You almost want to fish it until you get knocked off the water by weather. That's how close you can get. It's typically, the recovery time after front's typically 2 days, give or take. But again, I have to be out there, so I'm honest with my clients, and I'll tell them, hey, the front just came through, the fishing might not be good. If you're down from Ohio and it's your only day to fish, you're going to fish. So we still go out there, we grind it. What I do now, if I'm forced to fish that, what I do is I use shrimp, I tone down my baits, tone down my hooks, tone down my baits, just force feed these fish because they don't leave. Some people think a front came through and it pushed the fish somewhere else. They're there, but they're just not eating because that front's there and they're just hunkered down. So if I'm throwing this jig and I'm not getting bites or I want to switch it up, all you do is take your plastic jig off. So let's say you have shrimp in your live well. So you literally you take your jig off. There's nothing wrong with using that jig head on the shrimp. And now you're going to get your flounder because you're fishing on the bottom. Redfish, snook, anything's going to eat it with your jig head.
Do fish school up closer together this time of year?
Yep. The question is, do fish school up together? So this time of year they do. Depending on what you're looking for. So the redfish schools are typically fall and spring. When I say schools, like big schools, 200-300 fish. I'm not giving out any secrets. Weed and I like fish, 300 fish. They're easy. Those 300 fish that were there in October, they've spread out a little bit. What I would call a school now is 20 fish. They still do school up. The one big school fish that you're going to target probably the most the next 3 months is your trout. I've never seen a trout school. You can't do the same thing and say, oh, there's a school of trout. But you throw a jig like this, you catch one, catch another one, catch another one, catch another one. They're there. They blend in a little bit more and they're spread out a little bit more. But they'll school up, B, they'll school up in the same size. The trout, they're a little bit hard to target. You want to get as skinny as you can. All the trout I've caught over 25 inches have been in like a foot of water or less. Super, super skinny. Which on Saturday, if you're tournament fishing, we don't have enough tide to get really skinny. But target the shallower water. As that water gets really cold, if you're inshore fishing, the colder the water, the shallower you want to fish, because that water is going to be warm. So fish some shallower water, those fish will move up there. Another thing, if you're dock fishing, let's say you're fishing canals, and those canals, actually the sun's pretty far south right now. If you look at it, the sun's south. So even canals that face east-west, look at in the morning, look at which way that sun is hitting the seawalls. So if you have a canal that's 80 foot or 100 foot wide, the sun's going to be beating down on one side of that canal or the other. And when it hits that concrete, it's warming that concrete up, and that concrete goes down into the water, it warms that water up next to it. You'll see the fish, they'll push up they'll be on the sunny side of the canal. Those fish can feel, it might be a 2 to 3 degree temperature change, when it gets real cold. Especially fish in the morning, 10, 11 o'clock, that's a lot of sun that's beating down on that seawall and warming that water up. And sure enough, those fish will be on that side. When it gets cold too, think fish are like us. Do you want to fish in the shadow when it's 50 degrees out? Probably not. If the other side's warmer, it's kind of a win-win for us. Go fish in the sun, warm up, and catch more fish. Yeah. So question: do I change the way I work my jig depending on water temperature? I take it a step further. I'd say even depending every like 3 or 4 minutes. like if I'm not getting a bite, you're still casting the same area. So before I just say, okay, there's no fish here, I'll leave. My typical retrieve is reeling in, at a pretty slow pace. And I'll kind of tap, tap, let it drop. Tap, tap, let it drop. And again, this is looking like a fleeing shrimp. A lot of your bites will come when it drops. But if I throw in the same kind of zone, I think there's fish there, and I throw 20 times and don't get a bite, I may rip it through there a little bit quicker, and I may drag it through the grass. If you're targeting trout on a grass flat, here's a good thing. It's actually another thing I like about these Little Johns. On a hard bait, you probably won't be able to realize this much, but on a Little John, this is pretty durable plastic, but at the end of the day, a toothy critter can bite into it. So if you notice you're bringing your jig back and all of a sudden it's missing part of the tail, and they'll get all the way in the hook. If you're just kind of missing chunks out of it, that's usually a puffer fish that's doing that, and they'll sit here and eat jigs like cheeseburgers. They'll just eat your whole jig up. So now you may put a new jig head on there, boom, fire it out, reel it in, all of a sudden, oh, I got a ladyfish, I got a ladyfish, I got a ladyfish. If you're getting ladyfish, you're going too fast. So that's why I tell my clients, like, look, puffer fish too slow, ladyfish too fast. If you want trout, get right in there. It's a hard thing to stay on stage and say this is what the middle is, but judge that. So I had a feeling triple tail might come up tonight. Anyone that follows me see we had probably the best year that I've ever had triple tail fishing. It started out good. Now it's normal. The beginning of the year was absolutely ridiculous, but the question was when I'm triple tailing, am I just kind of sight casting up top, or am I just like patient fishing them? It depends on where I am. If I'm up in the bay fishing them, I'll have more patience, and I'll throw a split shot on a shrimp or a little white bait, and I'll kind of hit some of the markers and let it sink down. It's not my preferred way of fishing them. It's effective. You can catch them. You get a lot of bycatch, or I prefer to see them, and I don't mind burning fuel. So, when I take a little charter rod, I leave out to like Paso Grill Inlet, and I'll either run to north of Pier 60, like usually go to Anclet and back, or I'll go down to like Sarasota and back. It's a numbers game if you sight cast them. I have the tower, so I have the advantage, but you're burning a lot of fuel doing that. It's a lot of fuel and time. Basically running to see a triple tail on a floating crab trap buoy or floating debris out there.
Do you normally fish them up current or down current?
So depends, up current or down current was the question. So whichever way they're going to be facing that buoy, they're on the buoy. I'll try and set up. The problem is when it's windy, is you can't always. Sometimes the wind is opposing it, but I'll put my bait. I like to put my bait in front of the buoy, and it's like drifting. So if you guys are down here and you want to go catch fish, target fish that you can eat, sheepshead and flounder are going to be our two targets all winter. And the sheepshead fishing is really good in the wintertime. It's pretty easy once you get it dialed down. So you'll hear a lot of people, they call them convict fish, and they're hard to catch, they can't catch them, they steal your bait. One of the tricks is just tone your hook down. So use a smaller, I use like a number 2, like a tiny, like a hook that would be on a sabiki almost, a little tiny odor mosquito hook. It's a thin wire hook. So use a super tiny hook, and I learned this from being a kid, born and raised on Tierra Verdes. My dad got sick of going and buying me more shrimp, so I had to improvise. And if you look at pretty much any seawall around here, if you look on the downside of the seawall under the cap, there's little snails that live on there. You'll see them stuck. They're not barnacles, they're just snails. It's free bait. It's just sitting there. You can either lean over and grab it, or grab like a little bait-sized net and scrape them off. But you take, and they're the size of like your thumbnail. They're just little, they don't weigh anything. It's little tiny snails. Take that little number 2 hook, and you have to be careful not to crush the shell. You just kind of wiggle it through there, and then you're sight casting sheepshead. Yeah.